Hey guys, welcome to my channel Life of Lev. Today we're going to be taking a look at designing our first application in Sketch. So this is a beginner's tutorial. So really I'm hoping that you guys will know how to use this tool by the end of this tutorial, and you'll also have accomplished having designed your first application. So let's head on over to sketch.com and then hit the try for free button, and you should be getting an automatic download. So once that download is done, all we're going to do is open up that zip file and extract it, and then take that sketch file and drop it into the applications folder. So let's do that right now. So you can see here I have my downloaded file. I'm just going to double click that. It's going to extract, and you can see the application is here, Sketch. All I'm going to do is take that and drop it into the applications folder. And now that you're done installing the application, let's go ahead and launch it. Just click on it. All you're going to be seeing is the new document. So just go ahead and click on it, double click on it. And there you go, you have launched Sketch. So right off the bat, I can say that there's three main parts to Sketch, or I guess you could say four. You have the left hand panel, you have the top bar, and then you have the right hand panel. So the left hand panel has a lot of the layers and pages that you're going to be working with, and then on the right side is any kind of attributes that you want to modify, and on the top is a whole bunch of shortcuts. It's really duplicating whatever's at the top layer over here in all these menus, but it's just easy to get to buttons that you can use. And these are all the tools, different kinds of tools that you can be using. So this right here, right now, this empty thing is called your canvas. And what we want to do is actually have an artboard on your canvas. So let's go ahead and go to your left-hand side and click on Insert. And you can see we have a whole bunch of different options in here. You can insert shapes. This is a pen tool which you can draw out your own vector. There's a pencil, you can insert text, images, but we want to really insert an artboard. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's click on it. So you can see we get a list of different options on the right hand side. So like I said, this is the attribute side. This is where you can modify a lot of things. So I want to be able to create something, our application, our iPhone 8. So let's go ahead and click on iPhone 8, and the artboard is automatically created with the specifications of an iPhone 8 screen size. Now say you wanted to create your own screen size, so say you wanted to create like a custom size, you can easily do that with going back into Insert, Artboard, and you see this crosshair over here. You can just click, drag, and then you can create your own custom size. You can see here I have the attributes of the artboard selected. So in order to select an artboard, you can just click on one of them. So this is the iPhone 8 one. This is the custom one that I drew out. And I don't like the name artboard, so I want to be able to change that. So I'll just say custom artboard. And that's how you change the name of your artboard. Now I want to be able to resize this. You can see I have some of the dots on the side, and I can just pull it in this way. But really, if you want to specify what size you want your artboard to be, you'd go, let's say I wanted this to be 1920 by 1080. And that's a 1920 by 1080 desktop screen size. So now that's what your artboard is, and I can go ahead and modify that, 1080 p artboard. Perfect. So that's a little glimpse of how to use artboards, how to rename it, modify it, change the size and such. But let's design it in an iPhone 8 screen size. So I'm going to get rid of it, and then I'm just going to zoom into iPhone 8. Perfect. So we have our artboard here, And this artboard is actually sitting on what's automatically created, which is our page one. So page one, so I'm actually going to create this, I'm going to change the name, and I'm going to call this design. And so you can duplicate this page, so you can say you did a design, but you wanted to modify it and have some tweaks to it, so you can actually create a separate page and tweak all the designs, but at least you have your first initial design, and it's just a great way to reiterate and keep your artboard space kind of clean. So that was just a little tip. But yeah, so we have our design page, and we're just gonna leave it at that. And so let's design our first application. So our application, what I'm gonna design is just a really simple task reminder or task viewer. So we'll just do a really simple application. So first things first, we need a load screen. So let's create a load screen. So I'll call this iPhone 8 load screen. Perfect. So I want to be able to have a background on my screen. Now there's something over here that says background color, and you can change that into anything. So you wanted a blue, there's different palettes in here that you can change. Of course, you can use this right here, and you can even use what I love to use, which is the color picker. Now the color picker is really important to me because say you find something out on the web and you like a color palette that really works, you can actually use the color picker anywhere on the screen and pick those colors. You can transfer the color palette over to whatever you're designing, and then you can make tweaks to it, so you can modify the color from there. So I think the color picker is a really great tool to use. What I like doing, instead of selecting a background color, I actually like to draw it with a shape. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert shape, and let's go ahead and insert a rectangle. Perfect. So now this is the default color. It's not really great, and we want to be able to modify it. So let's go ahead and click on that, and I'll change it to this type of blue, and I'll take out the borders because I don't want borders. And there you go. We have something on our screen now, on our iPhone screen. So let's design a logo for our load screen. Let's go ahead and go to Insert, click on Shape, and click on Oval. Now I want to be able to draw one out just like how I did my rectangle. I'll just click and drag. You can hold down the Shift key to make sure that this oval is even and it's not wonky in any way. So yeah, I'm just going to draw out that shape. There you go. We have a nice big circle. I don't like the color of that, so I'm going to change the fill to the right side. Let's go with white, and I'm going to take out the border. Perfect. So you have a nice white circle. I'm just going to decrease the size, and the way that I did that was I clicked on it, and you can see I have my attributes to the sides of the whole circle, and once you hover over one of the points, you can just hold down Shift and drag it in, and there you go, and it will actually tell you the pixel size that it's at. So I'm going to go with, let's just say 160. Okay, you can even see that attribute to the right over here, so you can see the width is 160 and the height is 160. You can modify that from over here as well. So let's do it to 170. You can see I have the lock icon is actually on. So it'll just be locked. So once what I do to one will affect the other, and they both change to 170. That's great. So now let's insert some text, and we'll call this projects due. Perfect. And you know what? I like the size to be bigger, so I just changed it to 40. So how do I do that? So once I click on the text, you can see to the right I have a whole bunch of options for the text. Now I can change the text type. So right now it's on Helvetica, but I can change it to anything that I want over here. So let's change it to Hiragana Sans. That looks kind of cool. Let's change that. And you guys can pick whatever font you guys think would work best. And so these would be the subs, sub options. So if we went back to Helvetica, you can see we have regular, light, bold. You know what? I'm going to stick with Helvetica bold. And let's just say I want to modify the color. So I'm going to change that right here. I'll click on it and go to white. Perfect. And then I want to be able to modify the font size. So I can click on here. It goes up to 72. But maybe I want a custom size, so I can just click into it and I'll just type that in, 42. Perfect. Now that I have this screen, maybe I don't like the background that much. So I want to be able to make it a lighter background, but I do like this color. I like the shading. So let's make it a little lighter. Maybe I'll drop the opacity over here and I'll drop it just like that. I'll drop it down to say 20%. And now this is kind of hard to read. So I'm gonna select the text color and change it back to black. And I'll change this back to, maybe I'll say black as well. And maybe I want to be able to insert something into this, into this big circle just to have some sort of logo. So I'm going to go back into insert and click a big P. And I can't see that P because it's black on black, but if I hover over, you can see I can see it. So something that I want to show you guys is everything that's on here is in your layers section. On the top over here, you have basically your pages, and then you have your layers at the bottom over here. So I have 4 layers. So this is the rectangle, this is the oval, this is the projects due, and then we actually inserted that P in there. So I'm going to change this to a nice white, and I'm going to scale it. So the way that I make this bigger is I can click on it and click scale, and I can make this maybe 200 times bigger. That's great. And I'm good with that, so let's create scale. Perfect. And now I want to be able to modify this. I want to be able to put a gradient in it. So actually what I'm going to do is right click on this and convert to outlines. And now I can put a gradient. So over here is the solid color, but there's different kinds of gradients that you guys can do. You can even put in an image into here. So if I wanted, I can put in different kinds of textures, or I can go down into images and choose an image. But really, I just want to be able to put in a gradient. So let's just say I want this side to be white, maybe this side to be blue, and that's great. So I have a nice little gradient, and now I can move this anywhere, which way that I want, but I kind of like the look of this, so let's leave it at that. I'm just going to make my circle a little bit smaller. And now I want to be able to align these two. So you can see to the right hand side I have align layers. So I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to select the oval and I'm going to select the P. You can see over here I have them both selected to the left hand side. And now go over to the right and click the middle. and then click the middle again. And there you go. Now, it looks a little off, so I'm going to push it to the right, but that's not because the tool has misaligned it, but it's just how you perceive it, right? So that looks a little bit more centered, so that's good. And now I want to be able to move this logo as a whole. So what I want to do is actually group these two items. So I'm going to click on the P and then the circle and click on Command G. That's grouping it. Or you could click on the P and the circle and right click and then click on Group Selection. So we're just going to call this application Projects Due. So I'm going to select this, select the logo, click on G, Command G, and then we're going to group it. So now these two are both grouped. Perfect. I want to be able to center this, make sure that this is centered to the artboard. So I'll just click on the group, hit the center, and then also hit it to the middle, so it's in the middle of the load screen. Perfect. That's great. So now that we have our load screen, we can create a new artboard and then click on iPhone 8, and now we have an empty artboard. But what if I wanted to take some of these attributes and move it over to a new artboard, so I don't have to do some of the work again? Well, let's go ahead and delete this. To delete, just press delete. Now let's go ahead and duplicate this. One easy way to duplicate your artboard is select it, hit Option, and click and drag. And you know what? This is a little too big to be working on. So I want to be able to scale this down, let's say 50%. So click on your group, click Scale, and go down to 50, and there you go. Let's move this back up. That's pretty good. Actually, you know what? I want to be able to have this a little bit bigger. So maybe now that it's at 100%, I'll say 120%, maybe 20% bigger. That's good. So we have our logo at the top, and now we need a login screen, right? So let's create our login screen. Let's go into Insert, Shape, and let's create a rounded rectangle now. Okay, so now that we have our rounded rectangle, I really don't like this color again. So let's change that. Let's go back into white, and I don't want a border. So let's go ahead and take away that border. But you know what would be nice? I'd like to have some shadows. So right below that, you can see we have shadows. Inner shadows is a blur. Let's add some shadows in there. And then bam, you have a nice little shadow. You can adjust that. You can tweak that over here. You can adjust the blur if you wanted to make it bigger, smaller, and adjust these, but I kind of like it the way, well, I slightly modified it. I'm going to leave it at 1 and 4. And you know what, that's good. So I'm just going to move it down a little bit. And whenever you want something to stay in place and you want it to move up and down without moving it all over the place, just hold down Shift. That will keep it in line so you can move it in a straight line. There you go. So we have our first little rectangle in here, and that's going to be our input rectangle. So let's go ahead and put some text on top. So let's call this the name field. And the text is too big, so let's do 20. Let's modify this to regular, and let's move it to That's good right there. And now that I think we're good with this, the way this looks, maybe I might just drag this out a little bit. Let's change this to 40. Nice. Now we got the name and this ready. So now I want to be able to, duplicate this layer because we want to be able to put in a password. So we can group this, click on the rectangle layer and then click on the name layer or the text layer and then click Command G. And there you go, you have it grouped. And let's duplicate it by clicking on Option and click and drag it down. And you can see here, one of the most important things to know about Sketch is you can actually see all the pixel size, the spacing in between. You can see here there's the pink mark that shows that, yeah, so there's 72 pixels between our logo, the name, and now our duplicated layer. But you know what, I want this section to stay closer together because they're related. So I'm gonna keep it at 24 pixels, and I'm gonna rename this to password. So double click and click password. Great. So now I have name and password. And you know what? I want to pull this down just a tad. Perfect. I think that's looking pretty good. Now I want to be able to just have some dummy text in there, like username. So I'm just going to say Lev, or I'll call it Life of Lev. And I want to be able to have some sort of password in there. So I'm just going to duplicate it by clicking Option and dragging it down and nudging it a little bit with your arrow keyboard. And then I'm just going to do this, which is what you would see on most passwords. Perfect. Now the idea is that we want to be able to build a prototype that looks, like it could be a product that's just about to launch. So it's important to have something that looks very real, or as real as possible. So, so that's why we're filling in this kind of information to make it seem like it's actually a real login. Now that we have the name, the password, we need a login button. Most likely you're going to need a sign up button as well, right? Let's create our login button. Let's go into shape, rounded rectangle. And you know what? I'm going to modify it right over here to the right to 40. And the width, I'll say 100 for now. And you know what? I'm not a big fan of this color. So let's modify it. Let's pick this blue again. And let's do text and sign in. Perfect. I don't like that color, so let's change it to white. Perfect. And you know what? I want to have a sign up button, but I don't want to call too much attention to it. So I'm going to duplicate that and call it sign up. Perfect. But I can't read that text. So let's keep it consistent with the same color, and let's use that. Okay, sign up. And you know what? I want users to know that it's a clickable link. So let's add an underline underneath it. So you can see over here it says text options, and there's none. I can click on it, click on underline. Perfect. Now that looks like a link that someone could click on. Well, now that we have our name, our password, we have our sign in, now we want to actually be able to go into our application. So let's go ahead and duplicate this layer again. I'm going to click Option, drag it out. Perfect. Now we have our third screen. Now I want to be able to change the name of the screen. So you can see we had load screen, but this isn't our load screen anymore. So this is our sign-in screen. So let's call this SignIn Screen. And let's call this our application screen. So now, this logo is a little too big for us, especially to have in our application. So, do we really need the name of the application? I think the logo would say it all. So we can go ahead and delete this. The way that we do that, like jumping into a group, is you could actually click to the left-hand side. You can see we can actually click on the group and open it up and click on what you want to be selected. So in that case, I want this to be selected, which is the projects due. It's the text, and I want to be able to delete it. So I just click delete, or you can right click on it and click on delete, and then it deletes. And then you're left with just our logo. And now I want to be able to scale this down even further. And let's go 50% of that. Cool. Now, I think we don't need all this stuff. You can do that by just selecting and deleting, or you can click outside of the artboard. This is my trick. If you want to delete more than one step, and just select a whole bunch of stuff and then click again on the stuff that you don't want to be selected and hit delete. It's just an easier way to get a lot of things off the artboard. And over here, I want to be able to have some sort of click on menu. So just really simply, let's just create a little menu box. So I just create a little bar. Let's get rid of that border. Let's change this to a kind of a gray. Cool. Now let's zoom in again. And let's duplicate that layer. Let's leave 3 pixels. And now here's an awesome shortcut. Once you do your first copy, you can actually click on Command D, and it should duplicate it again. So let's go ahead and do 3 pixels and then click Command D, and you guys should be able to duplicate again. And you can create however many duplicates that you want, but I just wanted one more. So we have our menu bar. Let's say we want to change the 3 of these into, let's say 20. Yep. So I think that looks pretty good. That's cool. So this is, of course, a menu bar. Users will be able to click into it and get a whole list of options from there. Now we're creating a task manager. So, we want to be able to see our tasks that are upcoming and due. We can have something like, so let's do some text. Let's do 30 tasks due. And then maybe something like 10 tasks urgent. So this kind of tells the user, okay, so there's 10 tasks that are urgent and 30 tasks due overall. And, I want to be able to show the list of tasks in here. So let's go ahead and do that. I have a design in mind. So I'm just going to click on the rounded rectangle and just draw out the shape. Perfect. Again, I'm not a fan of this fill or the border, so I'm going to change that to a white. And what do I want to be able to see in here? Well, I want to be able to see the actual task. So let's go ahead and insert some text. So let's just call this task 1 just for now. And I'm gonna click on option, drag this down, and I want to be able to call this something else. So let me just call this description, and this will be the description. And you know what, that text is too big, so let's do it at 14. And you know what, I need it to be distinctive or different from the title, so I'm going to change it to a grayish black. Okay, so there you go. So we have the title of the task and then description. But we also want to know when's it going to be due, right? So let's go ahead and insert text and due. So I'm going to click on option, drag it down, and I want to have the date. So I'm going to say June 20. Okay, and I want to be able to change this to a different font size or weight. So I'm going to say bold. Perfect. And you know what? Let's give it a little bit more breathing room. That's good right there. Okay, I kind of want this due June 20th to stand out on its own. So I'm just gonna drag this out, duplicate it. You can see that this selected is white, but I'm gonna change it to a blue. And then I'm going to change the opacity down to maybe, let's say 50%. And then I'd like this to be white, the text color to be white. Perfect. Well, I kind of want this to be scaled up a little, so let's do 110. Great. Now, I don't like these curved edges on the inside of here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the item, and then I'm going to double click, and you can see I can actually have each of the corners selected. So I want these two corners to not have a rounded edge, so I'm going to click on one and then click on the other and hit shift and click on the other one and drop my radius, which is to the right over here. I'm going to drop it to 0. And there you go. I really like the look of that. That's awesome. And now I want to be able to, have to be able to view a whole different list of all these tasks. Let's go ahead and group this, but before I do that, I kind of want this text to align with this. So the way that I can do that is select both the text, click on the object or the text that you want this to align to, head on over to the right side and click on Align to Left, and there you go, it's aligned. Now, like I said, you guys can use my trick to selecting more than one object instead of selecting one by one. Just click and drag and then unselect the item that you don't want. Click Command G to group, and there you go. You have grouped your item. You can see it's telling us how much space is in between. And I'm going to say I want 20, so that's good. And now I'm going to click on Command D, duplicate again, and then Command D again, duplicate. Now you can see I have 4 tasks, but I want 5. That's great. So there's 5 tasks. Now I want to be able to modify what's in this group. Double click, and then double click again. And I can change it. Now click out. Double click again. 2, 3. Of course, we can change this to, let's change this to a different name. So let's call this urgent task, and then we'll just call it urgent task due, but it's not due until, let me say, July 20th, right? And you know what? I want this task to be able to have July 20th as well. Perfect. I'll call this urgent task 2. Boom. Perfect. So, I mean, we can definitely go further into, having something like filters. So having filters on top over here by date or by urgent. Maybe urgent is, it's something that is a flag that they can use for these tasks. But I also want to be able to show that there's more in this list. So what I want to do is just have a scroll bar. So I'll go to shape, rounded, rectangle, and just draw something out over here. And I'll take away the border. And I'll leave that at different color. I'll change it to white. Okay, we want to be able to add, add a task, right? So we can create that over here. Let's hold down Shift. And you know what? I like the color of this, so I'm going to go ahead into my color picker. So I'm going to click on my object, click on the fill, click on color picker, and select it. And you know what? I kind of want it to be smaller, so let's do 42 pixels. But you know what? I don't like it aligning with the logo, so let's add it to here. And I want to be able to have this kind of sectioned out and call attention to it. So let's do this. I don't like that this is on top, so let's send this layer backwards. The way that I do that is just go to Arrange and Send to Back. But make sure you have your background selected as well. So select your background and the object that you want to send to back. That way you can see your text. Cool, I'm just going to play around with this just a little bit more. That's awesome. And then I want to change the color, make that white. And that way we're calling some attention to it. That's good. Okay, you know what? Having this in the middle, that works. What would be really cool is if we had some sort of status in here. So let's go ahead and do that. We can do a status bar over here. So I'll say that this is, let's just do a border. And the fill, let's keep it consistent and pick one of these colors. So right now the empty space, I think let's leave it white. And the border, let's have it different color. There you go. That's pretty good. And let's do another fill. So I just duplicated that layer. And I want to be able to have it at no border, but let's do a fill. And let's just bring this background to the front. There you go. And you have some sort of status, and we can do that right over here. I want to just be able to duplicate this, and we can drag this out just a little bit. Yeah, 10 tasks that are urgent, and 30 tasks due. And this status could really show, how much of it have you done or how much is left to do, right? So this 30 tasks should be a lot bigger, and then your 10 tasks could be a lot smaller. But, to figure out what you want to put in there, we can definitely take a look and dive more into it. But for now, I think that kind of works. And now let's create I want to be able to use this button as an add button. So let's go ahead and create a plus. So I'm just going to put a rectangle in there. Let's zoom in. Click on it, and let's do white. Okay, and you know what? I want to be able to have the same width and height, but I want to be able to rotate it. So over here you can see I can use a rotate tool and just rotate it. Perfect. Now I want to be able to center it. So let's center that, and center it with the box. Bam. Now, awesome, we have our plus button. We can use our plus button into creating a new task. But I think that looks pretty good for a prototype. We'd be able to export this prototype and show it off to clients just to show off this new screen. Ideally, there'd be another screen where you can click on the add button, and then you can have the input for the tasks. You can put in the description, and you can select the due date. But I think this is pretty good for our initial application, and we can even create a prototype with this. So yeah, so now that we have our 3 screens, this is great. But you know what? I like this design. I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to make it, I just don't want to mess with it. So let's duplicate this page so we can create a prototype, okay? Now this step is not necessary, but I like doing this because it just makes the design cleaner and separate from the prototyping aspect, okay? So let's right click on design and click duplicate layer, and our layer is duplicated. Now let's rename it to prototype. That's great. So now we can create our prototype. And anytime you want to be able to modify your designs, you can still modify your designs and have your prototype in here. You just have to update the screens whenever you do any other kind of, if you change any of the design. So to prototype, let's click on the screen. Now 2 main things that you're going to be using here for the prototype section is going to be this hotspot and preview. Now hotspot is something that you're going to use to be able to initiate an interaction. So let's go click on hotspot, and we're going to put a hotspot on our logo over here. Now this hotspot is actually invisible, but it's highlighted just to show where the button is. And I want to be able to go to the next screen, so I want to be able to go to the SignIn screen. If you had this application actually running, of course you wouldn't have to click on the logo to go into the SignIn screen, but we need to initiate that kind of interaction because this is a prototype. So we're going to click on SignIn screen, and you can see I have this little arrow. But I just want to be able to go into the SignIn screen. You can see it goes right into the next screen. And now I want to go from the SignIn screen into the application screen. So let's create another hotspot right over here. Hotspot that and go into, and then move it to the next screen. Perfect. And now say I want to go back into my load screen. I'm going to create a hotspot. right over the P and click on the load screen. So that's the screen that I want. Perfect. So you can see that we have our hotspots in here and we can jump from one screen to another. So now I want to be able to preview it. So let's go ahead and click on preview. And there you go, guys. You have your first prototype. So you can see our mouse changes once we know we're on that hotspot. And if you don't know, you can just click anywhere and it will tell you where the hotspot is. So now let's click on it. Awesome. Just like that, we have an interaction that happens and we went to our next screen. And now I want to be able to sign in and get into the actual application. Click on sign in and there we go. And now I want to be able to go back into the main load screen. Let's remember we put a hotspot right over here. So we just click on that. There you go, guys. You did your first prototype. So if you guys want to modify your hotspots and the animations, Sketch actually has a few of them right over here. So you guys can actually play around with the animations on what you actually like. So let's say that you want to be able to export these 3 items and you want to be able to send it off into an email. You can easily do that by selecting these 3 artboards, and you can see to the right hand panel it says make exportable. So you just want to be able to click on that and then you can actually select the file type that you'd want to export to. So typically I do JPEGs or I do SVGs if I'm handing it off to developers. But you can do any one of these exports. And say if you just wanted to do a JPEG and then export selected, and then you'd be able to export all of them at the same time, so you don't have to do it one screen at a time. If you guys want to customize your toolbar, all you have to do is right click on the toolbar itself and click on customize toolbar, and then you guys can drag and drop any of these features that you want to be able to add. So it really depends what you like and what you don't like. If you feel like you're using more of something that's within here, then obviously, and it's not on your toolbar, then obviously you want to be able to have it on there. So one of the things I didn't have on there, I think, was actually the hotspot and maybe preview, but that's one of the things I put on there. And if you guys just want the default toolbar, you guys can just drag the default. This would be the default right over here. But say I did want something on here that's not on here, something in my toolbar that's not on here, I can just click and drag it into here. So there you go. I have my artboard now. That's great. So now I have a shortcut to creating artboards. So let's test that out. Click on artboard and there you go. I created another artboard in iPhone 8. And that is it, guys. So hopefully by the end of this, you got the gist of the layout down for Sketch, the application. And now you were able to design your first application, and you were also able to prototype it. And that's a lot to achieve in this very small amount of time. So I really hope that this tutorial was super helpful for you. I plan on doing a lot more tutorials, diving a little bit more deeper into Sketch, but more importantly, I plan on doing a lot more UX and UI videos. That's what I do right now for my full-time job, and I love what I do, and I love teaching people too. This is just the first video and a full set of videos that I plan on doing for UX. If you guys like this video, please subscribe to me, and if you guys have any questions at all, I'll be happy to answer any questions. And if there's something in the tutorial I didn't cover, just shoot me a question. I'm happy to answer it. Other than that, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please smash that subscribe button and smash that like button. And I hope I see you guys next time. Thanks, bye.